Good to have you here. One of the most difficult things to do ever in a session is to try and explain to somebody how to hear the voice of God. Because each person, if you know, there's 4 temperaments. Each temperament is so different, so it perceives things differently. Like the analyst, he analyzes, and so when God communicates with somebody like that, that is an analyzer, who tends to be a very critical person, that type of person hears differently to the relator, person that is a relator seer, or socializer. You're a socializer, God's going to communicate completely different to you. What makes this so unique and so beautiful is that each personality hears God according to their own perception and how they see things, their outlook in life. That's why you have a spirit-filled life. Even though your temperament may be to be an analyzer, or to be a relator, or to be a driver, or to be a socializer, what you've got to do is realize that when God communicates with you, it's within the context of your perception of your circumstances. So it's going to be more intense if you see your circumstances to such a degree that you are completely baffled and overwhelmed by it. If you are, so therefore, if God's going to deal with anything in your life, it's going to be according to your personality. It's very important to understand, because if I said to you, I heard God saying this to me in this way, it may never work for you like that. It's as simple as that. So when people say to me, well, how did you know? When did you say May the 2nd? Okay, that was a general thing. For those that were here last night, that was a general thing. Anybody can do that. You say somebody's here that was born May the 2nd. We have 2 people come forward. But then as you proceed, the word of the Lord becomes clearer and clearer and clearer. Because it progresses as you take a step towards whatever you heard. And you know what I hate about what God does? And there's a lot of things I don't like that He does, or that He said. Bunch of things. One of them is that He offers us a word of knowledge and a word of wisdom. What's the deal with this word? Why can't He give us a sentence or a paragraph or a chapter? So it's very frustrating when you want to hear from God and all you're hearing is this one word. So I'm in a meeting once and I use this example because it's my personality. I see a picture of Garfield, the cat. And I'm standing in front of a woman, and there's a bunch of people around me, and I'm ministering to them. And so I say, and I'm thinking, okay, Garfield, God, what are you actually saying? Is she a cartoonist? Does she like Garfield? How do I get around getting this word? So God's silent then. That's the frustrating part. And the beautiful thing about it is He knows humanity, He knows your spirit, He knows what it's like to discover as you go on, discovering yourself. And so He doesn't give everything to you. He wants you to discover it yourself. Because that's the fun of the journeys. The only problem with that is you could be accused of being a false voice or a false prophet if things don't go quite correct. And I found about God is He doesn't really seem to worry about that. When something's not perfect, He doesn't seem to care. He doesn't call me a false prophet if things are wrong, because you can make a mistake. Because we know in part. So we don't know everything right now. However, I'm at this Garfield situation and I'm saying, okay, how do I interpret this, God? So the choice is I'm either going to be overwhelmed by fear and I'm going to say I'm not going to do anything about this and just leave it, or I'm going to take a chance. 3 types of people, as I said, in the kingdom. There's the risk taker, the caretaker, and the undertaker. 3 types of people. Okay, there's 4 temperaments. The 4th one is the man that actually buries you. But the 3 types of people, and this exists inside of you, is the caretaker, the risk taker, the caretaker, the undertaker. The risk taker says, I'm going to take a chance, and I'm just going to say what I hear, and you're never going to know until you step out of the boat. Okay, there's that aspect of it. You're not going to hear anything clearly defined here from me today, saying, this is how you hear the voice of God. If I could do that, I would be very wealthy, first of all. But I don't know how. But I do know what works for me. And I notice in scriptures, as we've written in our book, that there's ultimate communication and then there's inferior communication. When I say inferior, it's not exactly the way God originally planned it. All of you sitting here, you have heard the voice of God. Believer or unbeliever, I promise you have. You just didn't recognize it because it came in such a strange form. Don't forget the word form. Please don't forget that. Or it came in such a strange appearance that you didn't recognize it was God because it didn't come as you expected it to come. I'll get back to Garfield, don't worry. Okay? you expected it to be this way. And you missed it because you didn't recognize the form or the appearance of the Lord. He came in the form of a billboard. He came in the form of a radio station. Wait a minute, now we're getting now like Kim. I want to hear Charlton Heston's voice when God speaks. Okay. You're not going to hear it because there's this presupposition that takes place in everybody's life. When he does talk to me, it's going to be, you know what I'm saying? Or it's going to be like that. No, it's not. First of all, you don't hear the voice of God. You perceive it. Even though we call it hearing, the word hear there is not hearing with your physical ear. It's perceiving the form of the Lord. So when he approaches you, you recognize him. And we'll get into some detail on that in a few minutes. One of them being Moses, which I deal with here because when God compliments Moses in Numbers chapter 12, he says to him, I don't speak to Moses like I speak to many people in the form of visions or dreams, dark speeches, which is mysterious, misunderstood, something you have to work out. I speak to him face to face, directly, and he recognizes the form of the Lord. Very big thing that he says about Moses. He recognizes my appearance. In other words, he doesn't judge me and miss me because I look strange. And the reason that he says that is because every time God dealt with Moses, it was in a very strange way. First and foremost, Moses meets him in the form of a burning bush and really doesn't recognize God. And then turns around and says, I must turn around, turn aside, and see this great sight. In other words, he saw the bush burning. He doesn't hear the voice of God. It's a phenomenon. He goes on walking, but then he says, I now will turn aside and see this strange sight. And the word see there means to look further than my natural sight. Okay, because that's what prophecy is, or the prophetic, is to see beyond your natural vision, field of vision, which is eyesight. Remember there's three things. There's eyesight, insight, and foresight. Don't ever forget that because every human being has that power. Now with psychics, all they're doing is mimicking memories. Every person is a life of memories. So when I stand in front of you, and I'm talking about just ministry now, not just hearing God's voice or perceiving it, you are a whole house of memories. I don't have the power, but God has the power to dig into your life and bring up a memory. Now with psychics, most of the time, they don't want to go on to the show with Christians because Christians just blatantly say it's demonic. And the thing about it is, even if it's true, the thing about it is they say, okay, we never want a Christian minister or a Christian to ever sit down and talk to us because they are so narrow-minded that all they ever end up saying is we are demonic. So they don't want to talk. But I believe it's a misguided gift. In other words, it's still the power of a very simple thing called perception. Insight, if you wish, not foresight. Foresight, psychics don't have. Insight is to know the present circumstances beyond your natural sight. So, in other words, you are seeing something further than the present circumstance. You know why it's happening. And so, a psychic basically finds a memory somehow, whether it's demonic or whether it just uses that perception and uses that and manipulates that person. The person has a memory about their dog. The dog's not communicating, I promise you. Max the dog is not communicating. But the memory is communicating. I must say that to you, please. Don't forget this. Everybody has a memory. Your memory is communicating your pain or your joy. So the memory is the past. We all know that. And I must deal with this because most people have the question, how does a psychic know? I mean, they're accurate. They are basically moving in a soul realm and they dig into the memory bank and they pull up something that's really affecting that person. Somehow they guess a lot, but then they get to it and it's Max the dog and the movie that they saw before the mother died. You got it? Memory. And so they play on it now and they found, okay, I was right. I may say to that lady over there, just before your mother died, you were in the house with her and you were sitting on a green chair. Okay, it's right. Let's just say it's right. And that's when she died and so on. And then I play on it and say, okay, I just heard from her and she said that she's doing very well right now and she's enjoying the mansion and whatever stuff they say. Do you see what I'm saying? So they really play on it. That's the perception that is not controlled by the Spirit. So this person standing in front of me, I see Garfield the cat. God knows that I am an artist, and He communicates to me on that level. And I also have a sense of humor. So He knows He can use that as well, at times, to minister to people. People want prophets to be very serious. And they want them to be glaring at, and that can happen too. But let's get back to perception, because this is what it's all about, is to perceive the form of the Lord. Moses, he sees, or at least looks with insight, and then when he recognizes that that bush that's burning is actually not just a natural phenomena, then the Bible says the voice of God came. Please understand that. It didn't just speak to him. So when he walked by the burning bush, let's stay with this, okay? There was no voice that came out to him. He had to turn aside. You can read it in the scriptures. You can see it right there next to it. He turned aside and he saw further than his natural eyesight. He said, let me see this great sight. Let me perceive what this actually is. And there's a lot of people that see the phenomena, but they never perceive what's in it. Hello? In other words, what is in this? What is in this move? The earthquake comes, the fire comes, the whirlwind comes to Elijah, and he perceives that God is not in it. That the Bible says that God passed by. Okay, so it was a manifestation of God without a voice. So if the voice of, and I hope I'm not getting too complicated, but if the voice of God is not in a manifestation, it doesn't do anything for you. Okay, so there's nothing to it. So Elijah recognized that God is not in the wind, He's not in the whirlwind and the fire, so he moves on and waits until he hears a still small voice. This happens to be a still small voice at the time. So, to perceive the form of God. I'm going to tell you why signs are so evil. No, seeking for signs are evil. Signs are not evil. Signs do come from the Lord. Hello? But he says, if an evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign. Why is that wrong? Because you will get a sign. Because when you seek after a sign, you've already predicted what that sign's going to be. So when the sign does not line up with what you have predicted or presupposed, you don't recognize it as God. That's why a lot of people didn't hear Jesus when He came, because they didn't recognize Him. So until you recognize, you can write this down, recognize the appearance of God, you won't hear His voice. It's right throughout Scriptures, you will see that. Now, and it's very important that you understand that Moses actually saw the form of the Lord in the burning bush. Okay. So, Garfield the cat. So the lady's standing in front of me, and I say to her, Garfield. She goes, I think, thank God. But as I did that, it all came to me. In other words, God waits for faith. If you don't work faith, you won't hear. You have to work it. Are you with me? Faith without works is, we are Christians. We're talking about we are the most privileged people on the planet. We can actually hear God. Why? Because the Word is in us. Who's the Word? Say it loud. Okay. The Bible says Jesus is the Word. Therefore, if the Word is in you, you don't seek for a word, it's already there. Confusing you? Good. I wrote this in my manual right in the beginning. I started by saying this. And I'm not a manual person. I write them, but I don't go through them. I just flow as I feel. The first words I write on page 3 says, listen, what do you hear? Of course, you answer and say nothing. And then I say, good. You are ready to hear the voice of God. When you hear nothing, you're in a perfect position to hear the voice of God. It's when you're hearing too much that you don't hear the voice of God. Okay? So when you're listening for God's voice and you hear nothing, you're in a very good place. Because you don't hear it with your natural ear. It's a spiritual thing. So of course, faith must operate. And so he says, faith without works is dead. Okay? So now you've got to work faith. Work it. So you can word it. You got it? When Moses struck at the rock, realizing now that God has said this ridiculous thing, there is water in that thing that's not supposed to have water. Moses has to use faith to get the water out. Are you with me? So we've got to understand, without faith, you're not going to get anywhere. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word. Okay? So now we have this issue. We have to use faith. Garfield, all I get. Step out. Say it. I've said it now. She goes, yeah. Good. Thank God. Now, as I did that, the rest of it came out. It was like it was hidden from me until I used faith. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. Okay? I think this is very simple and basic, but it's very important, because I'll tell you what your problem in hearing God is, that there's presuppositions. We have supposed already how He's going to do it, how He's going to say it, how He's going to work it, how He's going to change it. We've worked the whole thing out. How many sitting here have done that before? You've worked out already. God, when you do it this way. If you really want me to, then do this. And then when He does something else, we don't recognize it because we already predicted what it was supposed to be. And I've used this before and I'll use it again. Naaman, the Syrian leader, he's a leper. He comes to Elisha the prophet. He's already presupposed how the prophet's going to heal him of his leprosy. And he says, when the prophet says, go and wash yourself in the Jordan 7 times, he says, no, I thought he'd walk out, wave his hand over my leprosy, and I'd be healed. And so because he didn't do it according to the way he had already, planned it to happen, it didn't happen. So here we've got a problem. God has already got a strategy for your prosperity. He does. God already has a strategy. But if you are not using that method, then you're not going to get what He has already set for you. God already has a strategy for your healing. Listen to me. The Bible may say that we are healed by His stripes. But to actually get that word and that promise and that covenant to actually manifest is not so easy. Because what God does is He says, that's the principle. But now I have to give you a method in order to apply the principle. That's what the voice of God is. He gives you methods to apply the principle of prosperity. You got it? Not everyone is the same. Not every method is the same to apply. The problem with us is, let me use this example. In the 40s, they had, somebody came up with the idea, which was a method that God gave. Let's use tents to evangelize. People don't want to go to the church. They don't want to go to temples. There were a lot of temples around the time. And so people like Jack Coe, A.A. Allen, people like that got tents and they went on the Sawdust Trail and they started preaching and the revivalists began. Tents were filled. Miracles began to take place. Oral Roberts is a typical example. And it was incredible. For some reason, they applied the principle of healing and deliverance by using a method that had never been used before. That's what the voice of God will do, is give you a method to apply what's already established. There's nothing new about healing. There's nothing new about deliverance. There's nothing new about prosperity. It's a principle in the Word. How many of you in this building know that God wants you wealthy? How many of you are actually wealthy? You don't raise your hand. You know what I'm saying? But it's there. You know it. I had a dream this morning, and I know it's real. I had a dream, and I'm going to deal with this in the next session, is that God doesn't like to speak to you in dreams. He likes to speak to you directly. That's all there is to it. But He has to use dreams sometimes because you are so aware of your problems that He has to put you to sleep. He has to put you to sleep to speak to you. It's a fact. Isn't that the truth? When you're seeing things and you're overcome by your bank balance and your tax problems and everything that's going on, how do you hear the voice of God? I mean, it's impossible. Well, if God spoke, I'd hear Him. No, you won't. That's the problem. Because your circumstances have set in motion this paranoia that if God does speak, He's probably going to rebuke us for all the wrong we did, so He'll never say something nice. You got it? So He puts you to, well, you go and sleep, and God says, okay, the guy is in La La Land, he's out of it now, He's not really worried about his problems in an unconscious state. So now, let's give him a dream so that we can at least communicate with this person. Now, that's a little different twist on it, but let me tell you, it's really not his perfect or ultimate way of communicating with human beings. Is anybody with me? So, if you want a dream, he'll give you a dream. And Joel the prophet prophesied that in the last days, old men will dream dreams and young, and so on. And we understand that that is part of his communication. But if I'd like to talk to you, I'd really prefer to just speak directly to you. Tell you I love you directly. How would you like to do that, brother? That's perfect communication. And he did that with Moses. And my God, if he could do it with Moses, he must do it with me. I don't want an inferior way of God's communication. What was the secret that Moses had? That's where we've got to find out how to hear the voice of God. Where's the secret in these guys? What do? They recognized the form of the Lord. And when they knew, hey, that's God over there. Oh, that doesn't look like him. That's God. I'm telling you, that's God. Let me show you what I mean, if you don't mind. Go to page 23. We'll stick to a little bit of my manual, so you can, there's a lot of truth in it, and you can check the scriptures and everything. But look at the way God Jesus at least communicates, and I want you to notice this. Page 23. The title is Jesus. After his resurrection, Jesus appeared to many people, and they were not able to hear him simply because they did not recognize him. What you're hearing today is not your typical, do this, do that, do this fast for 21 days. And so I fasted many times for 21 and heard nothing. Nothing. All I could hear was toast out of the toaster, steak, and that's all I heard or smelled or perceived. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to fast. It's really clearing yourself, cleaning yourself, opening yourself up to God, and you'll find that he did communicate, you just didn't recognize it. It was a McDonald's packet or something like that. But what I'm saying is, this is not your conventional, this is how you do, but this is what you've got to do, and then you'll hear, because most people have been disappointed when they did that. I didn't hear a voice, I didn't hear God speaking to me, I still don't know what God's saying. Well, let's move on and say this to you. This is the Bible, and that's the only thing I've got. What did Moses do? What did Isaiah do? How did they hear? They had something. Just ordinary people. Balaam, come on, an ass, a donkey speaks to God. Don't tell me God can't, he can appear any way he likes. Let's get this religious idea out of our head that this is what's going to sound like, this is who he's going to use. Forget all that now. We are living in a fun time. And a great time. Colorful. We have television. We have the internet. You say, oh, there's evil. There's good as well. Listen to me. God can do whatever he likes. He can use it any way. You've got to recognize his form and get the idea out. It's going to be a guy with sandals and long hair and all this stuff. Get that out of your head. It's not going to be a flashing light from heaven. It's not going to be some strange, you don't know. But one thing you do have is the power to perceive. Never forget that. Your eyes were opened when you received Christ. The veil was removed from your eyes so that you could see beyond the veil. All good scriptural stuff, but it's reality. That's the Christian's greatest advantage. You can see beyond eyesight, insight, foresight. They didn't hear God's voice because they didn't recognize him. Prejudice. Problem. Naaman doesn't like the river. You don't like the color, the culture, the stream, the movement. And God says the exact thing that you got a problem with is where I'm going to move. See, God is that's the way he is. He says, because as long as you have this prejudice, you're not going to hear my voice. You see what I'm saying? Believe it or not. And let me tell you what the biggest problem is in hearing or perceiving God is self-prejudice. I don't like what I did, so God don't like it, so he'll never speak to me. That's not true. God would have, if that's the case, then he would apply the same principle, that we think is the truth, to Jacob. Jacob, who was completely wrong, but yet God opens the heavens, and clearly he sees angels descending and ascending, and God tells him exactly what he's going to do with him. Great nation, multitudes going to be blessed because of him. What about your sin? What about my need? God doesn't even address that. Self-prejudice. I can't believe God would speak to me like that. Saul, who's about to become the commander of Israel, says, no, don't speak to me in this way. Tell Samuel the prophet, don't speak to me in this way. You are the desire of Israel. You're going to be the commander of Israel. All I'm doing is looking for my father's donkeys. That's the problem. We've got this little tunnel vision. And we cry about the stupidest, that's not a good word, but anyway, the most stupid, silly stuff. Isn't it true? That gets in your way. Okay? Gets in your way. Let's talk about conditions. You gotta see. You gotta do this. Samuel says to Saul, he says to Saul, you gotta take this journey. On the journey, you're going to have some men walk over to you, or you're going to meet them. They're going to give you bread. They're going to be carrying wine. You're going to then go into Jerusalem, go to the holy hill of God. You're going to see the Philistines on the holy hill of God. You're going to hear prophets coming from the high place. There'll be, there'll be tambourines and harps, and they'll be singing and rejoicing. And you must join them and prophesy with them. And when you prophesy with them, you'll be turned into another man, thinking, God, you just said the guy is the commander of Israel. What is all the stuff he's going to do? And this is what Samuel says to Saul. I'll get back to this page now. He says to him, when these signs come to you, do as the occasion demands, for God is with you. Here's a problem. And I say problem, I'm being very lighthearted about it. I'm saying, in other words, it's all based on that one thing. You're not going to have it if you don't respond accordingly. Why? I've thought about this. I've been doing this for 27 years. That's a long time. Like Michael Baggerman said to me so on my voicemail. He said, you may look like you're 37. He said, but you're not. You're 47. That was a compliment, but he said, you just watch out. Because I thought I had a heart attack a week and a half ago. I seriously did. I was rushed to hospital. And after they did all the tests on me, the surgeon comes to me and says to me, the cardio specialist says, your heart is so good that it's sickening. So I said, what is it? He said, when you remember the August last year, I was supposed to come to Portland, and I broke all my ribs, fell. He said, when that happened, something happened up here, and in your shoulder, and what's happening is that's causing the numbness down your arm, which is going to require some work. You just pray for me about that. But what I'm saying is, for 27 years, I've done this, and I've never really been satisfied, even though I should be, with this whole issue of God doing something based upon our response. Give and it shall be given. So it's not going to be given if you don't give. Ask, knock, all these requirements throughout the scriptures. If you don't do it, you don't get it. Because God made you in His image. So in other words, you have the same power. You are created in the image of God. You have to also live as God. I ain't going to do it for you, God's saying. I'm not going to do this stuff for you. I'm not going to give it to you on a silver platter. It's not going to be served to you. Here is my word. My promise. Nothing's going to happen if you don't meet the requirements. And I'm not just talking about holy living and righteous, because that's what we think. We think that qualifies us. Okay, I'm clean, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do this, I don't do that, so therefore I'm meeting the requirements. No, I'm not talking about those requirements you meet because you love God. I'm talking about meeting the requirements that He stated, which was, Naaman, wash in the Jordan. No, we got better rivers in our country. Sorry, you don't get it unless you wash in the Jordan. Finished. Saul, you're going to come to Jerusalem. The prophets are going to be singing. You prophesy with them. You'll be changed into another man. That's the condition. Don't prophesy with him. You don't change into another man. You won't be the commander of Israel. He says, when these signs come to you, you don't look for a sign. You wait for a sign. Don't look for a sign. You wait for a sign. It will come to you. When it does, recognize it if it's God, and then do as the moment requires. He says, when these signs come to you, do as the occasion demands. Samuel, can you tell me a little more? Just a little more? No. Do as the occasion demands. What's it going to require? I don't know. Samuel said, I don't know. Do as the occasion demands. Whatever the occasion demands, do it. But I want you to tell me, no, you are anointed. You will know when the time comes. We don't like that. We are Americans. We live in a society where we are told exactly, we have the rules, we know. No. With God, He says, the principles are all here. When the occasion takes place, do as the occasion demands, for God is with you. Think for yourself, for God is with you. Don't stand still. Do something. Okay, I'm leaving it there because what I'm trying to deal with today is the voice of God is not heard with the ear always, or in a natural ear, but it is perceived by knowing the form. Okay? Switch on the radio. You're not looking for a sign, but suddenly something is said. You know what I'm saying? Now, recognizing the form of the Lord for you is one thing. I'm God to speak to me. But recognizing the form of the Lord in somebody else, so you can communicate with them what you see. Because the future is in God's hands. And every person sitting here has future. And that's what the form of the Lord is. Destiny, we call it. When I see you, I don't see a human being many times that may be upset about something, or I begin to see the form of the Lord and I can communicate with them. You know what I'm seeing inside of you? A king. Wait, Saul says, no, you're wrong. No, I'm not wrong. Because he can't see. Now the problem is, I can see it, but if he doesn't see it, it's not going to happen. It's just as simple as that. Now there are times when God does things anyway, in His great sovereignty. Let's read page 23 again. After His resurrection, Jesus appeared to many people, but they were not able to hear Him simply because they did not recognize Him. On the road to Emmaus, He appeared to some of the disciples. They had no idea who He was, and only invited Him to continue with them because of His words. Once their eyes were opened. Please hear that, because it's in the scripture there. Once their eyes were opened, they said, did His words not burn in our heart? Would they have said that with their eyes not open? No. The words would have meant, the good guy speaking well, he's a great orator, but his words didn't burn in their heart. In other words, make an impression, put an image. That's what burning in my heart means. It's like branding a cow. These words not brand upon our hearts. In other words, it's never going to ever leave. It's there for life. But they didn't say that until their eyes were opened and they perceived that this was the Christ. I know it sounds a little complicated, but you've got to know what He looks like. Now behold, two of them were traveling the same day to a village called Emmaus, which was 7 miles from Jerusalem. And they talked together of all the things that had happened, came by a Starbucks and said, hey, let's have some cappuccino. By the way, do we have cappuccinos here? Do we? No, not here. Here in the building. Oh, okay. So it was while they conversed and reasoned. Everybody say conversed and reasoned. Okay, that's a situation as well. Conversing and reasoning. And Jesus Himself drew near and went with them. The problem with most people, and one of the things to avoid hearing the voice, or not avoid, but stopping you hearing the voice of God, for want of a better word, is conversing and reasoning. There's just too much conversing and reasoning. So they converse and they reason, and guess who arrives? The Word. The living Word. Jesus is the living Word. In the beginning, the Word was with God. The Word was God. The Word is God. He is the expression of God. Okay? It's going to get better. So we have the Word, God. He arrives in the middle of reasoning and conversing, or vice versa. So, Jesus Himself drew near and went with them, but their eyes were restrained, so they did not know Him, or they didn't recognize His appearance. And as a result of that, listen now, they didn't actually have the words burnt into their heart. I know it sounds strange, but go on. And He said to them, what kind of conversation is it that you have with one another as you walk and are sad? Let me tell you something about conversing and reasoning. It usually makes you sad. Because there's no solution. You always have something you're going to come up, I've got something better to say about this. It's, and I could go on about that. About pre, mid, post, when's Jesus coming back, rapture. You got the whole thing, we sit and converse and read. Converse and reason. Never coming to a solution. Exactly what the devil wants. He wants you just to forget about that stuff and get out there and start kicking some butt. Serious, financial, I'm talking about political. I'm talking about entertainment stuff. I'm talking about the kingdoms that are out there. I prophesied over a senator in the late 80s, or over his wife. I didn't know she was a senator. He wasn't a senator, by the way, at the time. And spoke about a spirit of death that would come to their home. I didn't know this woman from Adam or Eve. And she was standing in front of me, and I said to her, you will have death face you, your husband, but you will have a child. And this will be the sign that death will not take over your life. That was it. Spoke about the political arena. Years later, her husband decides to run for a Senate position in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. And while he's campaigning, drops dead. And he's dead for, and I stand corrected, but it's between 29 and 32 minutes. Recorded on a camcorder by and I think some of you've seen on TV when we interviewed them, by a police officer, as he's dead for so long. They take him in, they try and resuscitate him, it's over. He's dead, they pronounce him dead. And she is standing outside devastated, and suddenly the word that was given comes out of the heart, and she's reminded at that moment. The word burnt in your heart. The reason I'm saying that, it's there, but it's stagnant. Hannah has a story about that. It's stagnant. Okay? And suddenly at the appropriate moment, it comes forth. And she says, wait! What was that word? And suddenly it's reminded her, your son, she has a son. Subsequently, they couldn't have children. From that time of that prophecy, she has a son. Caleb. That's the sign. Now I must do as the occasion demands. When these signs come to you, when the sign comes to you, do as the occasion demands. The sign came to her when her husband's now 35 minutes dead. Lying there, pronounced dead, she's not allowed in. The sign of her son comes to her. Caleb! That's right, he prophesied that and said that there would be no death. Now I've got to do as the occasion demands, because the signs come to me. The sign is the word in your heart. What he told you, God will always give you a sign. I promise you. And when it comes and the enemy does this, you stand up and say, okay, the signs come to me, the words remind me. She runs in, they stop her, they bruise her, trying to stop her, and grabs her husband's feet and says, you will not die. The voice of God said, we have a child, you have a political career, therefore you come back to life. He jerked out of death, came back to life. This is a fact. Came back to life. I spoke to him yesterday. He's running for he is a senator right now. He's been for years. Now he's even getting to a higher position. And he said when he died, the Spirit of God took him on a journey and said, you have to go back because there are kingdoms of the world out there that you have to invade. One of them, that you can invade, is the political kingdom. Therefore, you have to go back, but I need somebody to bring you back. Wait a minute, God. Are you not the God of the universe, the sovereign being that can turn water into wine, that can part waters? Hey, what about this deal? Why don't you just do it? No! I am restricted to do it because somebody has to become the voice of the Word. There's a difference. The Word is one thing, but the voice, giving a voice to the Word. Who's that person? One human being. A little Georgian lady. And shaking there, and doctors are looking at her. You're not coming in here. You're a maniac of a woman. She pushes through. She pushes through. They bruise her, stopping her. But she gets there. So why? Can't she just shout from outside? I don't know. She's acting. She is acting according to what the occasion demands. Nobody can tell you what you got to do. It's all in you. It's prophetic. So she runs, she grabs him, screams out. God says, adios, amigo, bye. And Senator Mike Cross leaves whatever place it is and into his building, up into his building, his body. Can you imagine that type of power that God's given us? Hearing the voice of God is not meaning that you're going to immediately be satisfied. Hannah got a word, and I didn't even remember this, but I gave her a word once. Hannah, why don't you come share it? Give her a big hand. This is smooth. She's going to have twins, you know that? Not now, but I saw that a while ago.
About 4 years ago, or maybe 4.5 years ago, I was on a Northwest plane. I'd just gotten on, and Kim called my cell phone and said, Hannah, don't worry. On your landing, he said, it's going to be very windy. He said, don't worry. Whatever happens, you'll be fine. And I'm like, thanks a lot. And not even a minute later, it was the pilot saying, we're grounded in Detroit for another 20 minutes. There's high winds in Dallas. I was flying to Dallas before I lived there. And so the whole flight, I'm like this, waiting, what's going to happen? Even though I knew in my heart, I'll be fine. Even if we hit some major wind shear or whatever, I'll be fine. But I was scared the whole time. It was a perfect flight. Smooth sailing. We landed in Dallas. No bad anything. So I was like, well, he missed it there. Prophet. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing. And that was 4 years ago, and I've forgotten about that. Well, Charlie and I just flew from Detroit, Michigan to Washington, D.C. a couple days ago, through Washington, D.C. to Dallas. And it was on a little small plane, United Airlines, the little ones. And it was a flight from hell. And there was major high winds and bad thunderstorms, and I really didn't think we were going to make it. I was that scared. I was telling Dari I had to hold on to the seat pocket in order to not hit my head on the side of the plane. It was just, I didn't think we were going to, but all of a sudden like that word, Hannah, don't worry. High winds, you're going to be fine. Whatever happens, you'll be fine. And I'm like, where'd that come from? And I remember, but that word was for that day. Even though he gave it to me 4 years ago, that word was just out there waiting for the perfect moment. Bam, hit my spirit. I knew we were going to be fine, even though I was scared.
And let me tell you something about that. You may say, well, that's just a little flight. It was a very serious situation, turbulence. And they were in a small, and you can get fearful. But when the word was necessary to apply that, which was burnt in our heart, which was applied, was set there, it then worked. So even raising somebody from the dead. So conversing and reasoning can make you sad. Okay? So then, are you guys cold? Is there no heat in this building? Are they not on? Okay. We're going to move by faith. We'll just receive that. Okay, let's look at this quickly. Why are you conversing? And another one is you walk in sad. Verse 18. One of them, whose name is Cleopas, answered and said to him, are you the only stranger in Jerusalem? Have you not known the things what happened here in these days? They obviously don't recognize him. He said to them, what things? They said to him, the things concerning Jesus of Nazareth, who was a prophet, mighty in the deed and word before God and all the people, and how the chief priests and the rulers delivered him to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we were hoping that it was he who was going to redeem Israel. Indeed, besides all of this, today is the third day since these things happened. And anyway, they go through this whole story. But then, from the next page, 24, verse 28, then they drew near to a village where they were going, and he indicated that he would have gone further, but they constrained him, saying, abide with us, for it is toward evening, and the day is far spent. He went to stay with them. Now it came to pass that he sat at the table, he took bread, blessed and broken, gave them. The whole issue right there. What happens in communion. Then the eyes were opened, and they knew him. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him. That's the issue here. They recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. I could actually talk about that for a while, but I'm not going to. But I'm going to say this to you. Once you recognize him, he's no longer visible. It's no longer something you see in the natural. It has now departed from your eyesight into your insight, foresight, and into your heart. That's where it goes. Okay, I know it sounds weird, but just listen, okay? Oh, he didn't, he went somewhere else. It's okay. Just stick with me. It was not necessary for him to be there outside anymore because he'd moved, his words had moved into their heart and was burned in their heart. And they said to another, did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us on the road and while he opened the scriptures to us? I want you to turn to Numbers chapter 12, if you have your Bibles. Numbers chapter 12. I love Portland. I love being here. You know why? First of all, we're very celebrated here. Secondly, you have great coffee. I had 3 cappuccinos this morning. Triple. Numbers 12. I'm not going to go into the whole story, but I'm going to read this to you. Then Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman he had married. For he had married an Ethiopian woman, so they said, has the Lord indeed spoken only to Moses? Has he not spoken to us as well? Now, verse 6, this is where I want to get into a few little things. It'll take me just a few minutes, and then we'll apply it. Hear now my words. If there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, make myself known to him. And he mentions levels of communication. In a vision, in a dream, not so with my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. I speak with him face to face. Let me just say something about faithfulness. It qualifies you immediately to the ultimate communication. Faithful in my house. Faithfulness. Servanthood. Important factors. He says, I speak with him face to face, even plainly, directly, not in dark sayings. Dark sayings. And he sees the form of the Lord. There you go. Different levels of communications. Let me give them to you. Signs, dreams, visions, hidden sayings or dark sayings, and then face to face. Plainly, directly. You decide. What would you like? Directly. I mean, this other stuff is too complicated for me. I get so many people that said, I have this dream about you. Tree, 17 branches, 95 leaves. 3 of them have died. You are the middle one. But when it fell to the ground, somebody trampled, and they go through this, and think, what are you talking? What? God, are you going to help me just interpret this stuff? Actually, I don't want it interpreted. Just forget it. Imagine telling you this whole thing, and God in 3 words could say, you're okay. Imagine that. I prefer to have that. But anyway, there is a significance to dreams. There is a significance to them breaking the whole thing down at times. Because you can relate to it. Don't forget now, your personality, your profile is how he communicates. Okay, so you're not going to know exactly how it's done, but you are a very unique human being. And he knows you. So he knows how to get through to you. But here's the issue. Now, I'm looking at a few scriptures, and then we're going to stand up and I'm going to pray, okay? 1 Corinthians 14. Let's read that. If you have your Bibles here, if you did bring your Bibles, as I do in my prophetic meetings, we have, it goes so quickly that we don't even have a chance to open the Bible. But the Bible's coming out, believe me. 1 Corinthians 14. I'm sure you've read this many, many times. Verse 22. We're talking about signs. Therefore tongues are for a sign, not to those who believe, but to unbelievers. But prophesying is not for unbelievers, but for those who believe. In other words, prophesying in that context of local church is for the believer. Prophecy can work for unbelievers. Believe me, I'm telling you that. I've seen it happen too many times. Okay, so, let me just say something about the sign. A sign for those who believe. How many of you were in the meeting last night? Did you see what happened with these 2 kids here? It was not unbelievable, but beautiful. Charlie and I were talking about afterwards. The most unbelievable. Michael was weeping like a baby. And he's 7 foot. But he was standing behind me, and you could feel what was happening. These 2 boys, I don't know who they are. Is the mother here today? Yeah, I thought so. And there's one of the boys there. And how old are they? 17 and 15. I was busy here, and I was doing my thing. And what happens to me is my hearing, I hear something or something stands out. And I heard them loud, but they weren't praying that loud at all. But it's almost like it hit and I turned to them and I watched. And I saw the form of the Lord. Always remember that now, okay? Because we're teaching you to see the form of the Lord in a human being, or to recognize the form of the Lord when he wants to communicate to you. I saw the form of the Lord. I recognized, hey, that's not a burning bush. That is God. Because we all look like a bunch of burning bushes sometime. You with me? I mean, if you judge by the outside or the appearance, nobody get anything. And it's true. You know that I went into a meeting in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, this is in the 80s now, when I had a thick beard, long hair. my wife and I walked into this convention, and I was sitting at the back there, and this guy was on the platform, and he stopped and said, that man over there, God is going to deliver you from your drug problem, and you will be free soon. And wait a minute, I'm saved. I'm not even saved, I'm a minister. This guy did not recognize, he thought I was a complete outcast. I was from the street. But he didn't see, he saw from far. And he was giving this word about being, getting freed and being delivered and being saved. And what I'm saying to you is, people judge two ways. You judge from the outside by the outward appearance, which we found out with David's deal with Jesse, that don't work like that. He says, I don't care. This is the guy. In fact, he's not even here. Get him from outside. This is him. This little boy, yes, this is him. The king of Israel. Samuel sees the form of the Lord in David when he really, in the natural, doesn't qualify. So he recognizes it. Okay? Outside appearance or the form of the Lord. That's why I love doing what I'm doing from time to time, is because I can see the form of the Lord in people. And it's a joy for me to say to somebody, you're a billionaire. No, I don't have any money. I said, I don't care I'm not looking at it now. I'm seeing the form of the Lord in you. Will you connect with me and believe it? If you don't, you're not going to get it. That's the issue. The sign is this. These young boys are praying, and I hear it, so I go to the one that's sitting there now, and I start interpreting what he's praying for his family, whatever, and I interpret the tongue that he's praying. Okay? Now, a lot of people think that the interpretation of a tongue is actually prophecy. It's not. Okay? Because you're praying, the Spirit is praying through you. So a lot of times we think it's going to be prophecy. Why go through a tongue to prophesy? Just go ahead and prophesy. Why use a tongue to get there? So tongue will be you praying, and you praying mysteries. So there's a whole nice thing about this, is that there's a mystery in you. You cannot communicate it because your intellect and your converse and your reasoning is getting in the way. So God says, okay, I'll tell you, I'll solve this problem of conversing, reasoning, and trying to calculate it. I'll give you your own language. And there's a mystery in that language. Howbeit, he that prays in tongues prays a mystery. Hello? In other words, there's something inside of you that must be revealed. It's not going to be revealed. So I'm doing that. I'm praying the mystery. Then I go to the next person and I pray. And here, younger guy, 15, he starts praying and starts shouting out, Lupus, Lupus. Well, standing, I think it's the same lady, right behind us. Your father was your father? Father. Direct line behind him, the lady, her father has lupus. And so what happened was, he was praying for the person behind him, whose father was not even here. Don't you love God? All the voice of God. Great sign. You don't see that often, and you don't have to. It's just what I'm saying is, it's surprising. It's always full of surprises, this voice of God thing. But a sign. There are signs. The Bible says in Mark 16, these signs shall follow them. So there are signs. You are a sign. You are a living sign. You don't have to go out and witness. You are a witness. You are the evidence of His existence. You are the evidence. And so you are the sign. Anyway, so there's signs. God will speak to you by signs as well. Okay, it's one way. Visions, Acts chapter 10, and verse 3. And about the 9th hour of the day, he saw clearly in a vision an angel of God coming and saying to Cornelius. Wouldn't you just prefer if God just spoke to himself? In a vision, he sees an angel who communicates. So you got it? When the 3 disciples go up on the Mount of Transfiguration of Jesus, in a vision, they saw him changing. So a vision is necessary, but not, as I said, perfect communication. I'm running through it very quickly for you. And I'm going to end with something very exciting. So, signs, visions, Acts chapter 9, verse 3. We went from 10:3 to 9:3. 9, verse 3. A man by the name of Saul of Tarsus journeyed, came near Damascus. Suddenly a light shone around him from heaven, fell to the ground, heard a voice saying, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Now, he said, I am Jesus whom you are persecuting. It's hard for you to kick against the goads. So trembling and astonished, he said, Lord, what do you want me to do? Now, hold on a second. Jesus Christ is chosen to communicate with this human being directly. One-on-one. Not a Christian. Killing Christians. Hey, that's a little unfair. You know why? Because there's no religious garbage. When I say religious garbage, I mean the stuff that stops God from speaking to you. You understand? But he is blind. One little thing. He has to be blinded to see. He has to be blinded to hear. That's what vision is. A vision is literally blinding you to hear. So you don't see your circumstances, or you're not aware of. It's another situation where you don't see it, you don't hear it, you don't feel it. You are now blinded so you can see. Crazy but true. And so he goes on, he says, now, Lord, what do you want me to do? He knows it's Jesus, he's calling him Lord. The whole deal is done. Instead of telling him, he says, arise and go into the city and you will be told what you must do. It's called timing. It's called timing. Thing we don't like. We want now, and I want it immediately. Timing, pal, because you know why? Spirit has to be in sync. There has to be in other words, you've got to align yourself with that thing that's already taken place in the Spirit. And so you are perfectly aligned to hear or perceive. You don't perceive all the time. So he says, you will be told what to do. Now, let's move on. Acts chapter 9 as well, going down to verse 10. There was a certain disciple in Damascus named Ananias, and the Lord said in a vision, Ananias, he said, here I am, Lord. He said, go to a street called Straight and inquire at the house of Judas, one called Saul, for behold, he's praying. And in a vision he has seen a man named Ananias coming in and putting his hand on him so that he might receive his sight. There's a situation. Ananias doesn't want to go. He says, but Lord, this man has power to kill, put us in prison. So I don't think so. So Jesus says, I've got a situation here. I've already shown him you. I've already shown him your face in a vision. So in a vision, Saul has already seen you, Ananias, and I can't change it. So your face is already in the future. Your face is in the future because Saul has already seen you, your face. Now what you got to do is you got to get your butt where your face is. You got to get to where your face is. Because you're already there. I've shown Ananias, I've shown Saul, you! Not anybody else, you! And you know what the thing about this is? And that's what they call me New Age prophet. I said, this is what they don't like to hear. Jesus didn't change his mind. He said, you the guy. Sorry. And if you don't go, this is not going to happen. What about the will of man? What about man's decision to choose? Does that take away choice of will? But you know what? It's the truth. God said to him, sorry, Ananias, your face has been seen by Saul already. You are in the future. The only thing you got to do is get there. You got to get there. And I'm waiting for you. But Lord, no, Straight Street is your destiny. The house of Judas is your destiny. Get there. So he starts walking towards Straight Street. He starts walking to the house of Judas. Gets there, and suddenly you can see it happening in this. There's an alignment. As he knocks on the door, look at it. It's the designated will of God and destiny, and the person, the piece of space on this earth, come on now, is aligning with that perfect moment as he knocks on the door. Judas answers, whoever the guy was, said, we've been waiting for you. In fact, Saul has given a description of what you look like. Please come in. As he walks in, destiny meets up with this one human being. And the miraculous is not a difficult thing. He is able to apply the miraculous to Saul, to his eyes open, baptize him. Suddenly the whole thing takes place. The man is changed because he took a step into the future where he was really at. That is the glory of what I'm talking about. But anyway, that's happened in visions and dreams. Hidden speech. I'm going to stop now. Plainly. God speaks plainly, and that's what I want. I want to hear it so clearly. I don't know about you, but I want to hear it so clearly. And I am. Let me tell you something, people, it takes a bit of risk. Nothing comes easy. And you know what you'll find with me is that I'll say something and a person will go, no. I don't go, I go back. There's something there. I'm not going to stop until I find out what it is. And you know what? There is something. There's a brother named Daniel that's going to get touched. There he's sitting right out there. There's somebody. It's always something that's going to come out if you saw the appearance of God. It doesn't always come clearly, but it's there. And when you begin to act by faith and you begin to step out, that's when the word of the Lord comes to pass. Do you understand? Now His word is burning inside of you. What is it that's already there that you're not aware of? What is already in your heart that you haven't? You know what a prophet can do? He can take the word that's already in your heart and reveal it. Listen to what happens with Samuel. As a little boy, he is taken to the temple, and he's asleep, or he's about to go and sleep, and God speaks to him, and it sounds like Eli, the high priest. And you know why he didn't recognize the voice of it? Because the Bible says, for the word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to Samuel. But when it was, he became the most accurate prophet at that time. When he meets Saul many years later, you know what Samuel says to Saul? He says to him, come and dine with me. You and I are going to dine together. And then he said, and tomorrow I will let you go. I will free you into your destiny. And he said, and then I will show you all that is hidden in your heart. What was hidden is, you know what our problem is? We're just sin conscious. Oh, he's going to tell me what's hidden in my heart. Sin is not something that you can hide. It's so obvious. David said, my sin is ever before me. Don't give me that stuff. I'll tell you what's hidden in your heart. What's hidden in your heart is king, queen, senator, entertainer, evangelist, prophet, teacher. Come on now, billionaire. But you're never going to get it until that is revealed to you. It's already in your heart.